Welcome back, everybody, to We Are TPM with myself, Kyle Teixeira. Sitting next to me again is John Teixeira. This week we are back to continue talking about things about property management.
Things about property management.
We're going to talk about technology and innovation in property management and how it affects landlords, stuff like that. So if you guys have any questions, want to get a topic out there, want to talk to us, maybe you need a property manager, give us a call, 817-818-9039. Shoot us an email at showmethemoney@wearetpm.com. John, let's get into it. What did we call this one? I just gave you a lot of different things.
Technology and innovation. So
we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. Like last week, we talked about cost concerns. We're really talking about pain points for landlords, pain points out there in the market for things with the reasons that they're looking for property managers, or maybe why a property manager would be beneficial to people with a portfolio. So we don't talk about that very often, but
a couple podcasts ago, Kyle, we talked about why you don't want to manage properties yourself, right? With all the high level reasons why you don't. And so some of these following podcasts now are just a drill down of some of those points, and this is one of them, right?
I'm trying to provide some data and insight.
Yeah, exactly. We brushed over, having the tools and resources, as we called it. You can call that technology and innovation, but the average landlord that has 10 properties or less isn't going to be able to. It's not going to make sense for them to pay for these technologies and innovations. It's not quite necessary for that number of properties, and the expense that it's going to take just makes it inefficient and not really worth it.
Well, because people discount the fact that when you're paying a management fee, the property manager doesn't just take that whole fee, right? Like there's people behind it, there's salaries behind it, there's systems behind it, there's costs that go into being a property manager.
Right.
And this is all kind of related. So the highest level is just property management software. This is just software to manage your rentals, your tenants, all this stuff. And just that simple difference where it's over 80% of professional managers use the software, which I was actually surprised.
They use some software?
Software of any kind for just high level.
It's not 100?
No, yeah, it's. Wow. I mean, I'm sure it will in 10 years when.
So there's still property managers out there using Excel spreadsheets and Word documents like I used to do?
I guess you could still probably call that property management software, I guess. No, but it's less than 50 for self-managed. So that data point actually surprised me a little bit more, that it wasn't more of a difference. But what I've seen, I actually saw this yesterday in a community group that I'm in, property managers. Access to the good ones requires a minimum amount of properties, just starting there. Most self-managing landlords, even the ones that do the most cumbersome, that do all the things that you want it to do, generally you can't even get access to. Usually the minimums are like 50 properties.
To your point, also they all cater to different size portfolios. So, I think we're on our third one for that reason. We got a more, the first time we had a more basic one to handle the portfolio we had, and it was affordable, right? Mm-hmm. And then once we had a bigger portfolio, we needed more tools, right, that we didn't have in the other one, and we can now afford it. So we stepped it up to another one, and now we've got, I think we have the kind of the Mercedes of the whole thing, right? I think we have what is considered it's actually the most used. I don't know if it's the best, but it's definitely the most used one in the industry. And I'm not sure we can do any better than that. We could probably do different, but not better. But the point being, we worked into that as our portfolio grew, and there's no way that you would, even at 50 properties, that we would have been able to have the software that we have now.
Yeah, it makes a significant difference. So why does the software matter? That's why does a landlord care about the software you're using?
That's a great question.
Is really the next question. I mean, the honest one is efficiency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the first one is efficiency. Efficiency for the manager, the tenant, and the landlord, right? All people involved get automation benefits, time savings. This is I'll give you some data from the National Housing Council found that property managers using technology save up to 20 hours per week on administrative tasks, rent collection, maintenance requests, tenant communication, all of that stuff. So the next question you would ask is, why do you care, right? If you're paying a property manager, why does their internal efficiency matter? Well, it means they have more time to focus on the things
on
that
your
do
property.
matter. Yeah, the maintenance items or all of these pieces individually can get more attention versus getting behind.
Well, if you drill down on one of those points, and you talked about rent collection as being one of the things that's more efficient, not only is it more efficient, but it's more efficient for the tenant. It's easier. They can pay quicker, easier with a lot more methods of payment, right? There's like 5 or 6 different ways they can pay us on their portal, and that only benefits owners to get their rent in a more timely manner.
It does, and it in rent collection, a lot of it is part of my French, but it's cutting out the BS, right? It's getting rid of the different things, different excuses that people can provide. If you have one method of payment, it's easy to make different excuses, right? Like, oh, well, I couldn't get to your bank, or I mailed that check. I don't know what happened to it, Now I can mail another one 10 days later and then tell you in 5 days, oh, well, the mail must have lost it again. We've had those conversations with people, and it's like, well, the problem isn't necessarily, the problem is twofold. It's your tenant and your collection method. There could be a problem on your side because it's open to being taken advantage of. Yep. So you can mitigate that by having really excuse proof. Payment method. So this is actually from Appfolio, which is the system we use. They did a survey internally and reported that people who acquired their system versus not having it prior resulted in a 30% reduction in not only time spent on rent collection, but 30% increase in it says collection rates. So, that's a little general. That tells me is that it's getting them on time at a 30% higher rate. So the data supports this as well. Maintenance coordination as well, 25% reduction in time spent on maintenance coordination. So again, people ask, why does that matter? Tenant satisfaction and tenant retention. Right? We talked about that last week, but it's
tied very closely to what you just described, the maintenance coordination.
And rent collection.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, having a set system in place for rent collection or for how people deal with, how your property manager is going to deal with rent collection is important because it's consistent.
Well, consistency is the key. I want to point out that even some of our late payers that are consistently late, I think even they appreciate the fact that we have a system in place, that they know how it's going to go, right? And it's consistent. Like every month when you're late, you're going to get this late fee or whatever it is, right? You're going to get this notice on this day, and so they know our system, and I think everyone appreciates that. They understand. Understanding the rules that you're living under, and it just makes life a little bit easier on people, even if they're not abiding by the rules.
Yeah,
because it makes sense.
It's knowledge of your consequences too, right? So, and the technology assists the property manager, and this assists the homeowner. It assists all these things because the same technology is informing the landlord of what's going on. If it's been collected, when it's been collected, all that stuff. So, if you're self-managing, you probably don't get that benefit.
Yeah, you're right. How about financial reporting and accounting?
Well, yeah, definitely.
I mean, what financial reporting and accounting is going to be important to owners, right? It's important to owners. It's important to tenants. When there's a dispute on a tenant's account, what does the landlord that's just doing a ledger, on his notebook in his truck, how is he going to prove to a tenant what what their ledger looks like, or you know what I'm saying? Like it's harder
because you need that in cases of dispute, in
Right.
cases of future. Like we've had to go back and 'cause people move out and they have collections. Those things can go on for years sometimes, and you got to go back and justify it 3 years later. Well, having a system to track and hold all that information is extremely important. Where I've seen landlords who are like, I got screwed out of all this money, but I don't have all this justification, and like. Even if you hire someone to go after it for you, you need documentation, you need ledgers, you need payments. If you never wrote the method of payment or had a scan of the check and stuff like that, you can have issues. So it's all very important. So, and tenant satisfaction wise, communication is a big part of it too. You can track communication or keep communication very streamlined. And then it's, well, we live in 2024, right? So this is from a National Housing Council report that approximately 75% of tenants prefer digital communication methods. So,
well,
they prefer text.
That surprises me. Maybe it doesn't surprise me. I guess maybe the percentage doesn't surprise me, but we insist on communicating by text message or email, like some kind of written form, right? And I tell everyone,
we do a lot more now than we used to.
Well, people like to, especially applicants, right? Because they're still trying to sell themselves on you. So people like to, oh, can you call me? Or they try to get you on the phone and have a conversation, explain things to you or whatever. And I always end my conversation with, I'm going to put the details of this conversation in a text message, and for future correspondence, it's easier and better for both of us if we communicate through that written correspondence so that we both can go back and review it if we need to, right? That's important for you as the tenant or the owner just as it is for me, so that we get it right and we all know where we stand and there are no question marks when it's in written form, unless you can't write English.
You don't want to play the he said, she said game, right?
Exactly.
This is what you said on the phone. This is what they said on the phone. Now I'm talking to you.
It happened to me yesterday.
It happens every day. But it's funny when we're in our system and it happens over text. Like, well, this person texted me this, and I'm like, well, what you don't know, or which you clearly don't realize, is that person's text and my text and your texts, they're all in the same feed on our end. I can see what they said to you, and this is what they said to you, and do you want me to read it back because it's not how you're describing it? And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, maybe I was wrong about that. So efficiency and effectiveness.
Well, here's the other part about that, and maybe you're right. Maybe a self-managed person might not care about this as much, but we definitely do, and that is that in our communication, our entire team, we got 6 people on our team, they all can see it. So if all of a sudden you have an emergency and we're in the middle of dealing with something, anybody else on your team can pick that up and take it, and they can see what the communication's been, where it is, and they can take the baton and continue whatever needs to continue. And that's really important, especially when you're working with other people. If you're trying to do all this by yourself, it's just hard. And when you have somebody else, other people to rely on, it makes it easier, especially if you have these tools that we're talking about.
Yeah, because it's convenience for the tenants too. This is important. Just to have access to the knowledge, right? Like that alone can mitigate a whole bunch of your time and save a whole bunch of time. They have an online portal where they can go get their lease. They can see their payments. They can see what they paid for. If they thought they made last month's payment and they didn't, they can see that, right? If they thought they had different terms in their lease than they do, they can see that. They can check those things. So I think that's just more important, especially for even a landlord to have that, because otherwise you're answering those questions, you're getting contact, and it's maybe not all written. So, but that helps tenant retention. Tenants like, especially nowadays in the world of technology and innovation, they like having ease of access. They want to be able to not have to communicate with their property manager if they don't have to, right? They can.
Or I think to your point, and to your stat that you pointed out, 75% of people would prefer to text. I've grown to be that way as well, right? Just by the nature of what we do, how many phone calls we take. I can handle an issue in 5 seconds over text message that will take me 5 minutes to handle verbally in a phone conversation. And so we can all as human beings get a lot more done. And that's not to take the humanness out of the whole thing. I get it. Sometimes we need to, there is a human factor that you need to not forget about. But when you're doing tasks all day, every day for a lot of different people, then using the communication that they prefer, which happens to be the most efficient method of communication, is just makes sense. It's just smarter. And doing it in the app so that you can see it. So the next time you go to their account, you can see their account balance. You can see their status. You can see all the text messages you've ever done. You can see all the emails you've ever done with them. I mean, that's the only way to do this, right?
Well, and even if a landlord said they could do that, we talked about access to these things. These tools have a high bar for access a lot of times. One of which being Buildium, right? So Buildium's report that we mentioned last week indicated that 70% of tenants prefer paying online and submitting maintenance requests through their online portal versus other methods, and leads to a higher satisfaction and retention rate. That's still pretty general, but 70% is a big number. I imagine it's more than likely more than that. But
so I guess that falls in line with the other stat, which is 75%, right? So I think there's that 70 to 75% of the population just prefers to do everything that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
By text message or digitally or whatever. They just really don't want to call and talk to anybody if they don't have to. And then you got the other 25 that prefer never to do it that way, and they always want to call and talk to people. It's like one or the other, right?
Well, and these numbers are just going to grow, in my opinion, because, I mean, as the generations go on, I'm sure these numbers are more weighted towards the younger generation that want to do it this way.
Michael Jackson might ask what a phone call is. What's a phone call, Daddy?
I saw a video yesterday about a parent teaching their kid how to book a dentist appointment. It was actually kind of funny. Like, I've never done a phone call.
Don't you do that online, Daddy?
But in that same report, they showed that basically the direct comparison of tenants that had technology for these things versus didn't had a higher retention rate. 70% higher retention rate compared to those without it. And that's significant. Even if you get, say, 2, 3 out of 10 tenants that stay for an extra year or two because they like your systems, that there's a huge cost benefit to that.
Yeah, and that falls in line with that stat, right? You're absolutely 100% right. Like people leave homes for lots of reasons, but one of the biggest ones is they're unhappy with the management. They're unhappy because they don't trust the landlord to do maintenance, to account for their money correctly. There's usually a lack of trust somewhere. And when you can get past and build a bridge to create that trust in every aspect of that management process, from rent collections to maintenance and to financial reporting and all of those things, then it's comfortable, and they don't want to leave that. It's when they know that they might go to a more uncomfortable situation where, once again, the landlord doesn't care about me. He's going to let the roof fall in. I mean,
Yeah, when in our markets, every rental pretty much is different. So they're kind of throwing a dart to see what kind of experience they get, even if it's professionally managed sometimes. So I think that is an interesting point, if nothing else. But higher rents. So we talked about this last week, so we won't dive too far into it, but just getting higher rents because they want to stick with you and get retention, and you get to, not gouge them, but, keep things up to market rent is easier through these systems.
Well, why? In the technology and innovation scheme of things, I mean, the reason being is because we have more tools, and the tools that we're talking about incorporate rental comps that others don't have. Other realtors don't have them. Other property managers that have the same system would have them, but that's about it. Most people are getting their rental comps, which is how they determine their value, from active listings on ZillowRealtor.com, Trulia, and other sites, right? That's how they're getting them. And that's a horrible way to figure out where you should be pricing your home. And so we get more information. It's not that you can't get that. You can get rental comps from a realtor or from the MLS, but we have access to even more information because everybody that uses a system, all of their data is in the system.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And, it's all good, right? I had something to say, but I forgot about that.
I don't know if it's all good or not, but it's definitely more data. So the more data, the better.
Yeah. So, I mean, and not to draw it back to retention, but at the end of the day, these things all lead to higher tenant retention, and tenant retention leads to more income, right? So, and drawing that into a case study, we did pull up a case study. It was a mid-size, I think it was about 300 properties in California. They did a direct test of implementing property management software and advanced technology across the entire portfolio all at once. And over 2 years, the company reported a 15% NOI, net operating income increase on the rental properties, so directly passed through to their owners, just by having these tools in place for reduced maintenance costs, lower vacancy rates, stuff like that. Because again, getting back to retention, we've seen landlords who lost tenants over, just for not having a system. Say they move in and, the threshold on the front door needed to be replaced and is letting air in and leading to high electricity bills. And they told the landlord about it right after they moved in. It got lost in the shuffle. And then, 10, 11 months later, when the lease comes to renew, they're like, well, I'm moving out because you never fixed this threshold, right? Those tiny things they stared at for a whole year can really lead to them leaving.
Well, and also having these technologies allows you to use a good system and get into a routine, right? To use them on a regular basis. So when you learn the system, you embrace it, then you get into a routine to do all the things that you just said, right? To be able to do all those things efficiently and be a better manager of your properties, or if you're a property manager of other people's properties. So like, for instance, you and I, we have routines, right? We have daily routines of things that we are responsible for regarding our property management business. And I go through those routines every day. There's never a day that, unless maybe I take a week vacation, there still probably isn't. There's never a day that I'm not going to be able to tell you how many renewals I'm waiting to get signed, or how many are out there that are waiting for an inspection to be done, or, you know what I mean? Like, Hallie can tell you exactly how many collection accounts we have on any given day. I mean, we all have our tasks that allow us to get into a daily routine that makes us better, right? That gives us, it makes us better as a team.
Well, and then taking it back to the landlord, who cares about the things that are in this system, right? So having a system of reporting properly for taxes, having things coded properly for taxes, those matter to the landlord, because even if you do have a professional manager, you need that once a year to make sure that you're not only paying proper tax on your rentals, but also getting the proper tax deductions, getting write-offs for the repairs and all that stuff. So it's not just monthly reporting, it's yearly reporting, and all this stuff is backed up by historical data. So
yeah, and you threw out a stat a minute ago that I was really impressed with, and that is they were able to determine somehow that their owners benefited by a 15% NOI increase. I mean, that's huge. That's what we're looking for, right? Everything that you and I do in our business, and this is what all property managers should be doing, is with the eye of serving your clients better. And what your clients want, usually out of their investments, is more money. Right? So if you could serve them better and protect their asset better, make them more money, save them more money, if you could do any of those things, then that's your job, and that's what you should be doing. And that's what these technology and innovation tools that we're talking about, that's what they all should be striving to do.
And save them time, right? They want one
time
point
is money, isn't it?
Yeah, they want one point of access to, or at least a place to go to get the things that they need, whether it's tax reporting, whether it's monthly statements, whether it's maintenance coordination, whatever it is, they want to be able to obtain it.
But to your point, saying that as a property manager, it saves me 45% in time management and saves me 30% in my NOI. An owner doesn't care about that. They're like, I hired you. I don't care how much you're spending, how much time you're spending, how much dollars they don't really care. They want us to do a job and do it efficiently and effectively. But the more efficiently and effectively we do that job, the better it translates into a end result for the owner, which is, I think, what that stat is proving to us.
Mm-hmm. And then the last point I have is just general, the innovation part, technology and innovation. In 2024, there's a lot of new products coming onto the market or that have been on the market for a little bit that only professional managers have access to. That
iRobot?
Stop.
Sorry.
In my track. Significantly or give some assurances, but now I'm questioning the iRobot thing. I really just want to know.
Is iRobot, did I date myself with iRobot? Is that too far back? That's not too far back, is
movie.
It? That's what, 2006?
I have no idea the correlation
2008?
of that movie and what we were talking about.
Oh, I thought we were going toward artificial intelligence. My apologies.
Gotcha.
My bad.
So, innovation, artificial intelligence that can help communicate with landlord and tenant, but that's not really what I was talking about because it doesn't help the landlord. It's like products such as like rent guarantee insurance, where they're not going to just give it to a private landlord, but they will give it to a portfolio. There's a lot of portfolio products out there now, like cheaper renter's insurance or things that they'll give to the professional manager to cover their whole portfolio that the individual landlords can take part in.
Those kind of innovative products. Okay, got it. You know what iRobot does have, though?
One day there might be an iRobot standing outside your rental property all day making sure the tenant does, hey, I hear you owe your rent on your way out the door.
That's funny.
Your lawn's looking a little bad, instead of just mowing it for them.
Every time I see AI, the next generation, I think of iRobot. Sorry, it's a direct correlation for me. I'm just ready for the robots to come out of the
There's
truck.
Simple things too that you can call it innovation, but like tenants love coded door locks.
Yeah.
Just not having to use a key they're in a rental, so they're not allowed to change the locks, but that's something that a lot of professional managers, we do this. We provide those by default on the front door because that's the easiest way to retain a tenant, because people think that's a small thing. I'm like, no, it matters to them to have that convenience. Anything you can make more convenient without costing you a ton of money is a pro. So.
Yeah, I don't know how long I've had mine on my door, but you know what? Ever since I have, I don't think I have a key to my house.
Well, it's just like the you don't live in a rental property, but if you do, don't lock that internal deadbolt, right? It's like the people who rely on the garage door to get in and out of the house, and then the power goes out, and they're like, well,
we literally had that happen recently, and somebody had to spend time away from their home for 24 hours or something. They had to go find some place to stay for the night till the power came back on.
Well, I mean, just don't lock the internet. It wasn't made for when you're there, right? So
we're getting sidetracked a little bit. iRobot has better listening skills than I do, by the way. Yeah. That's where I was going with.
Well, I mean, when iRobot is when you have the opportunity to hire iRobot as a professional manager, we might have a different podcast topic. So
yeah.
Currently, iRobot makes vacuums that go around your house, I think. So
that's right, they do, don't they?
Yeah. So I think you can.
I wonder.
That could be technology innovation. Put a automated vacuum in your rental. Maybe that'll sell it. You never know.
If they had to pay Warner Brothers for that name, or do you think that's trademarked or anything?
I don't know.
I just made Warner Brothers up. I don't even know if they're the ones that put out iRobot. I just made that stuff up. I think we're done, Kyle. We're definitely digressing. Do you got any more over there?
I do, but I think we've just beat it up.
Go for it. Let's do more innovation and technology.
There's a study on the future growth. Investment property technology is expected to grow by 15% annually over the next 5 years, reflecting recognition of the value that we have just discussed.
Only 15%?
It's a lot.
That's a lot?
Yeah, that's a lot.
That it should... Wait. The technology is going to grow 15%.
No. The investment in it. So the use of it. The adoption of it will grow 15%. I feel like it'll probably be more than that. But if it's already at 80 for professional
Well,
managers,
if we talked about trying to get United States more like Australia and flip-flop the 20-80, the 80-20 rule and get it to 80% managed, then it'll definitely be 15% at least, right?
I guess. Well, I think if
Be more like the Aussies.
if you want to ask John more about his iRobot or his Aussie's comment or any of these off the wall things that have been going on the last 5 minutes, give us a call 817-818-9039. Shoot us an email at showmethemoney at wearetpm.com, and I believe we are
We're out. Let's go.